Hey everybody, I'm Tim Ward and welcome to Garden Sense Radio. Well, the emails have slowed down a little bit, probably because the overseeding season is pretty much close to over for most of you. We have gotten a couple of emails though that we did want to address here on this video, so why don't we jump right in? Question number 1 is from Chuck. Hey Tim, we have a persimmon tree that generates a lot of fruit every year. The problem is most of the fruit falls off the tree before it's ripe. Is there something we can do that may help with this? So there are several reasons why the fruit may be dropping before it's ripe. The first thing that I always think of is it getting enough water? Is it getting enough nutrition? If the balance is off with either two of those items, a tree is going to take care of itself first to make sure it survives versus making sure that the fruit, the seeds that it's producing are getting what they need. So those are two really common culprits. A third and fourth culprit would be some type of a pest or some type of a disease. Now, in your email, you didn't identify that the tree looks unhealthy, so it's probably not a disease. You also didn't mention that, hey, the fruit's getting eaten or it appears rotten and it's falling off, which is really common when there's some type of a pest insect infestation. Which leads me to the fifth and what I frankly believe is probably the issue. The tree probably just needs a good pruning. Trees will often overproduce. Again, when a tree is not pruned properly, it's going to produce a lot of fruit. That fruit needs nutrition, it needs the water. So if a tree is not able to take in the nutrition it needs and make sure that it gets it out through all the branches to all of the fruit that's growing, it's going to start dropping off early. If you go to any fruit tree operation, peach trees, apple trees, the trees are typically not very large and they're pruned every single year. Now, it's hard for those farmers because every time they cut off a branch, take off a couple of buds, that is potential profit that they're losing. But it's actually better for the overall health of the tree, and what it's going to do is produce larger, and in this case, better and properly ripened fruit. So again, without a picture, I can't say that that's exactly the reason, but based on the limited information I have, I would say that it may just be in need of a good pruning. Question number 2 is from Tom. Hey Tim, what is the cutoff point for feeding potted perennials? So at this point, I wouldn't do any type of fertilizing or feeding of your perennials for the rest of the year. Typically with perennials, you can feed them in the springtime, early springtime with something like a garden trust, a good granular fertilizer that's going to be a slow release and feed over a couple of months. In the late spring and early summer, you can certainly use something like Kickstart to help really strengthen those roots and give the plant a little bit of a boost from a nutritional standpoint. And then once late summer hits, I'm talking late July and early August when the dog days of summer and that heat really starts to get intense, giving it a second feeding of something like Garden Trust is going to be okay. But frankly, this time of year, it's now October, that plant is readying itself to harden itself for winter. It's going to go dormant. It may drop some leaves. Obviously the blooms are going to go, again, depending on what type of plant that we're talking about. So it's a little bit late now to feed. I wouldn't recommend it. Again, I would really focus on that early spring feeding with something like Garden Trust, maybe a little bit of Kickstart over the summer, and then if you really want, if the plant's not looking good, again, when that heat starts to kick in August, giving it another application or maybe even a half feeding with something like Garden Trust is going to be okay. But this late in the year, I would absolutely leave it alone, let the plant do its thing in its typical growth cycle where it's now going to start prepping itself for winter. The last question for today is from Mary. Hey Tim, what specific product do you recommend for debugging porch plants that you bring in for the winter? So in terms of bringing porch plants in for the winter, there's certainly a number of insecticides and products out there you can use to debug a plant. But for me personally, and this is again just my personal preference, when I'm bringing the plant indoors, I like to use something that's a little bit more natural, and I highly recommend something like neem oil. Those of you who've used neem oil know the benefits. It's a natural product that will not only help knock off any bugs that are there, but it's actually going to help prevent bugs from coming back. Again, if you have any in your home that may want to feed on that plant. But another added benefit is it really helps a plant's disease resistance. It's truthfully a natural fungicide. And so applying neem oil to me is really the best of both worlds. It's going to take care of the insects that are on the plant. It's going to prevent those obviously insects from attacking it if it gets indoors. But then again, it's going to provide that disease resistance that frankly a lot of plants can actually succumb to, because again, they're used to being outside. They're now inside. It's more of a constant temperature. They may not be getting the sunlight that they need, and so that fungus or other types of disease, root rot is also another really common one. So again, I really highly recommend neem oil to debug your plant. It's worked really well for me, and I know it'll work well for you. Well, folks, it was a short video this week, but again, keep sending your questions in. We're always here to help if you need us. Please send your pictures, your questions to rosensonline@yahoo.com. We'll do our best to answer each and every one of your questions, even if they don't make it here on the video. Remember, we still have the fall feeding frenzy going on. There is a fourth feeding that we recommend between October 31st and Thanksgiving. So the plan is right now we're actually going to run that fall feeding frenzy through this month. So it's going to go on until the end of October, so make sure you stock up for that fourth feeding. Folks, we really appreciate the time that you give us each week to watch these videos. Thanks for watching, and we hope you have a great week.